So, as you guys know, Kendrick Perkins is notorious for dropping just horrendous top 5 lists, whether it be top 5 teams, top 5 duos. It really doesn't matter because every single list is absolutely awful. And Perkins' latest top 5 list is the top 5 offensive players in the current year of 2023. Looking at this list, number 1 was Kevin Durant, 2 Steph Curry, 3 Jokic, 4 Embiid, and 5 Tatum. Now, a far from perfect list with a pretty wacky order, and 2 notable absences were Luka Doncic, as was LeBron James.
There we go, Joel Embiid. No Harden, no problem. Led the league last 2 seasons in scoring. Right now, the man is averaging 32 and doing it in great fashion and dealing with all type of distractions. So what? Put me on the floor with RJ, Malika, and Shanae and Perk and watch me still go to work and watch me have a 5-1 record. That's what I'm seeing right now out of Joel Embiid. That's why he's number 4 on my list.
So hopefully Luka was in the back of your mind in that clip, as Perkins' overall criteria was pretty simple, as Embiid is averaging 32 points, has a great record, and minus James Harden has been perfectly fine. Not the greatest criteria for top 5 offensive player, but apply that same logic to Luka Doncic, as so far in 2023 Luka Doncic, just like Embiid, averaging 32 points, actually the highest in the NBA, on 52% shooting, 41% from deep, and 78% from the free throw line. Compared to Embiid, just scoring-wise, efficiency-wise, Luka Doncic so far has been much, much better. Now secondly, the great record. Dallas, like Philly, has a great record, and the Mavericks are 8-2, being second in the West, behind only Denver. Now lastly, Embiid has been great without James Harden. Fair point. But Luka also, minus Kyrie, has been just as good. And I would argue Joel's help in Philadelphia is actually a little bit better than people think it is, as right now Maxey is a walking 30 points in his own right. So look, that's not my criteria for a great offensive player, as we look at offense. Of course, scoring, passing, playmaking, and efficiency all come to mind first. And comparing a center versus a point guard offensively is a little bit odd. But looking at Luka Doncic, the overall passing and playmaking gap cannot be ignored, as Embiid is barely a top 30-35 passer compared to Luka, who's easily top 5. And if you look at pure offensive skills, not defense, Luka this year is a master in all aspects. The pick and roll, he's top 5 in scoring, ISO scoring, also leader, much improved from 3, and in late game clutch time moments in the 4th quarter, ranks first in 4th quarter scoring. From an overall offensive perspective, that is the full package. And looking at both Luka and Embiid as scorers, I would argue Luka Doncic actually is the better scorer and a much better passer. As look at this breakdown, Luka's career scoring average is 27.7 points on 47% shooting. In the playoffs, that jumps up tremendously to almost 33, compared to Joel Embiid, who has a massive drop come playoff time in scoring and efficiency. I think when talking about offensive players being unstoppable, being top 5, someone like Embiid last year and really every year in the playoffs has been exposed in one way or another. Joel Embiid's last playoff game, he scored 15 points in a Game 7. For Luka's career, he never scored less than 35 points in a Game 7.
Jokic,
like Wakanda forever.
Jokic, the big fella, he's number 3. What he's doing right now, MVP type season, MVP type numbers, doing it in all fashion. Has 0 flaws for a center. Has actually changed the game at the center position with his ability to pass, the best passing big in the game. I got Jokic at number 3, and he got a tray ball out this world.
So if I'm listening correctly, and I think I am, Kendrick Perkins said Jokic has no flaws as an offensive player. Interesting, because he's ranked 3rd behind Curry and KD. And if you want to talk about being unstoppable, having 0 flaws, Jokic in the playoffs cannot be stopped, as much like Luka, is a top 5 passer and a top 5 scorer. And really, any defensive scheme, you can't double this guy, play zone versus him, as he'll pick you apart, find the open man, or get his own shot. And if you look at Jokic this year, he's come out guns blazing, averaging nearly 30 points on 61, 33, and 75 splits. And out of the entire NBA, ranks top 10 points and assists. One of only 2 players to rank top 10 in both those categories. Take a wild guess who the other player is. Of course, it's Luka Doncic.
Kevin Durant.
Oh.
You know why KD is up here? This is a guy that can actually lead the league in scoring every single season. This is the best offensive player to ever touch the basketball. And guess what he's averaging right now? 30. 30-piece wing dinner, all drumsticks, hibachi style. Listen, here's the thing about KD, right? We could go down the list and we could look at all these fantastic players. And yes, I left some off and Luka and all that. But when it comes down to KD, he's one of one. And for his scoring and getting buckets, he's been carrying that title for about a decade, a little over a decade now.
Now, let me just set the record straight right here. Kevin Durant definitively is not the best offensive player in 2023. Maybe 4 or 5 years ago he was, but today, he's not. Secondly, Perkins saying Kevin Durant is the best offensive player ever is simply not true. Third, last year in the playoffs, Kevin Durant wasn't his team's best player in general or offensive player. That was Devin Booker, and it wasn't even close. And lastly, saying Kevin Durant for the past decade has carried the buckets title, I'm not really sure that's even true, as someone like LeBron James, come playoff time, NBA Finals time, has been just as effective, if not more so, on the biggest stage. And looking at KD's overall game, in his prime and even now, one of the big flaws to his game is passing and playmaking. And when teams stifle him, limit him, one of the big reasons they do that is Kevin Durant isn't a great passer. I mean, last year versus Denver, again, this guy wasn't the best player on his own team and struggled mightily versus physical defense. And I think Kevin Durant being first on this list is 1000% a legacy ranking, as there's no really solid case to argue Kevin Durant is a better offensive player than Jokic. I mean, the last 3 years alone versus Boston, when he was swept, struggled mightily versus doubles, physicality, and so on. And when you contrast that to Jokic, who just got whatever he wanted versus Phoenix, you can't say Kevin Durant is a better offensive player. Maybe scoring-wise marginally, he's better than Jokic. But passing, playmaking-wise, picking defenses apart, Jokic at this point is light years better than Kevin Durant. I mean, look at that series. 35 points per game, 10 assists, on absurd shooting splits. 44% from deep, and then 60% from the field versus that Suns team. Sure, KD got his 30, had his moments, but as an offensive player, didn't even compare to the Joker in that series or in the postseason.
I think that Nikola Jokic, you're taking the guy who's the best shooter in NBA history.
Changed the game.
One of the best offensive players in NBA history, and Kevin Durant doing incredible things, post to kill, all of that stuff on another team right now. You're taking him over the 2-time MVP, the Finals MVP, Nikola Jokic.
Yeah, I'm paying homage to because they have been doing it for.
Homage, or are you being honest?
No, because they have been doing it over a longer period of time. And they're still doing it.
Fair enough.
So Perkins right here was kind of called out, kind of caught in a trap. And his one excuse to this list was actually paying homage to guys like Steph and Kevin Durant. Because, quote, they've been doing it for longer. So if that's actually true what Perkins believes, where's LeBron James? Think about that. LeBron last year, 29 points per game, 8 assists, a top 10, top 5 offensive player who, quote, has been doing it longer. If that's your real criteria, LeBron James, at minimum, should be top 3. That is a massive, massive hole in Perkins' overall logic of paying homage. And if I had to guess, Perkins actually just got kind of caught with his pants down and got exposed on national television. And last week, James Harden kind of went viral, saying he's the quote-unquote system in himself. And I think, of course, James Harden's out of his mind, but if there's one player who's actually a system in himself, it's gotta be JOKIC. As when guys like Bruce Brown, Christian Brown come in to play with him, he makes all these guys 10 times better. I mean, take Aaron Gordon for example. He was kind of a cast-off from Orlando, but now he's a legit French all-star player and 3-and-D menace.
Well, it's not an argument. Do we realize that Steph Curry actually could just step on the floor without taking the shot? And it's great offense for the Golden State Warriors because that's how much attention he demands. Well, so we could go back and forth about which each player brings to the table and what's unique about each player. And that's why I said we could go down the line, but offensively, I see zero flaws in either one of those guys' games offensively.
Now, stopping it right there, when it comes to top 5 lists, debate shows, one thing I despise at the end of time is the same criteria not being used for every single player. As again, Perkins' overall logic, it's here for one guy, not for the other. And right here, Perkins' main point is saying Steph Curry, he can control the game, impact the game, taking 0 shots. Fair point in Curry's favor. But at the same time, NIKOLA JOKIC also could dominate a game not shooting the basketball. As last year, he had 16 total games taking 10 or less shots. Denver in those games was 14-2 with JOKIC, averaging 11.2 assists, proving the Joker, just like Steph Curry, if not more, can control a game outside his scoring. And ironically enough, Perkins last year actually criticized JOKIC for not shooting enough and quote-unquote stat padding. So when it comes to Perkins and JOKIC, there's really tons of narratives at work and obvious bias against him. Why that is, you can only speculate. So that right there is the end of the video. As always, thank you guys for watching, hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.